Despite having abundant natural resources, Africa remains the poorest continent in the world. So why is Africa poor? Is it historical injustices like slave trade and colonialism? Or is it the unjust trade structures? What about civil wars between tribes, ethnic conflicts, and clashes within governments? What about poor governance, often linked to corruption, greediness, and high incompetence? What is colonialism? Was colonialism an advantage or disadvantage to Africa as a continent? What are the economic, political, and social effects of colonialism in Africa? According to Stephen Orchan, colonialism is the direct and complete domination of one country by another on the basis of state power being in the hands of a foreign power. For a period of a century, Africa was under the dominance of European countries. After the Otto von Bismarck Berlin Conference, or what is known as the Scramble for Africa in 1884, European superpowers regulated how to colonize Africa. Like a loaf of bread, Africa was sliced and shared amongst the European territories. What were the effects of this colonization? The subject remains under debate. Some say colonialism was an advantage to African people because it brought about the development of education and health systems. Some say colonialism was a disadvantage because it made African colonies dependent by introducing a monocultural economy for the territories. Some say it dehumanized African labor force and traders. What really happened during the colonial era? Africans were forced to work in colonial plantations at very low wages, and many were displaced from their land. The colonial systems introduced taxation systems. Africa's natural resources like minerals were taken to European countries. The colonial system introduced industrialization and urbanization. All this was new to Africans, as such their social, economic, and political structures were disintegrated. This left the African people disadvantaged, impoverished, lacking in education, among other things. Colonialism introduced a dual economic structure, with whites being relatively prosperous, regardless of gender or geographic dispersal, and the natives suffering in poverty. It also brought about disorder in the African economy. It brought European education, trade, market, transport, and currency. Another impact of colonialism was the political centralization of territories having no central government, or where centralization already existed, the foreign takeover or domination of pre-colonial central government. The establishment of plantation colonies designed by the English and afterwards imitated by other imperialist countries had a grossly disturbing effect on the African nutritional economy. In certain areas, colonialism led to a drastic population decrease. In the Belgian Congo, the decrease was by 50% between 1879 and 1919. This was due to forced labor and the atrocities linked to it. The artificiality of colonial borders is one of the popular truisms about the effects of colonialism. There is little disagreement that the boundaries of contemporary African states are unusually arbitrary as a result of their largely colonial origins. There are two aspects of artificial borders, that is the creation of ethnically fragmented countries and the separation of the same people into bordering countries. Sometimes both is the case, as the example of Lesotho shows. Not all nationals are Basotho, and not all Basotho are nationals. The colonial borders furthermore created landlocked states in Africa more than in any other region, and they created large countries, increasing the likelihood of civil wars. Many authors see the investment in the education and health sectors as the most positive impact of colonialism. According to new estimations, colonial human capital is the most important colonialism-related determinant of long-term growth in sub-Saharan Africa. However, it is to be kept in mind that education under the colonial government was not primarily meant to improve the knowledge of the indigenous population or to open the ways to European universities, but to recruit and train clerks, officials for the administration. Education policies were guided by the practical needs of colonial society. For example, in Egypt, the British attempted to confine westernized schools to the training of future civil servants and to direct the bulk of primary school graduates into vocational institutes. To conclude, Lee Wangraf argues that the legacy of the plunder and colonization has been the expansion of capitalism as a system and the massive accumulation of capitalists and their nation states at the expense of greatly weakened states and economies in Africa. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and share my video.